Testament were what we call the Second Corinthians, and along about the 8th chapter is where we left off. And we were talking about giving and how Paul commended these people for their attitude of giving. And just to kind of bring up a point that struck me, he says in verse 3 of that chapter, "For I testify they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability, entirely on their own. They urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints." So this is, Paul has been gathering contributions from various churches to take back to relieve the needs in Jerusalem and Palestine. And he sees that as a way of uniting the churches, uniting churches of Jewish people, mixed churches of Jews and Gentiles, and Gentile churches. And that's something that works, I think, then and now. I think we feel a special closeness to people that we help. And if people help us, we feel a closeness to them also. Sometimes we look upon giving as a blessing, and it is described as a grace given by God, even as a gift of helping others. Paul talks about gifts of the Spirit in various places in 1st and 2nd Corinthians. Sometimes we need to have the grace of accepting gifts. Sometimes that's hard. We feel, nobody's going to help me. I'm willing to help other people, but I can stand on my own 2 feet and do it all for myself. So in a sense, it's a grace to be able to accept gifts and help in various ways in a graceful manner, if you will. But I was impressed. He says they pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints. And what struck me in connection with that is maybe you've done that, but as a congregation over the last couple of years especially, we've had people come to the elders and say, there's a need here, or there's a need there that we ought to do something about. The most recent is the floods in Eastern Kentucky. We had people come to us and say, what can we do to help? And immediately before that was the situation in the Ukraine. And we had people come to us and say, what can we do in the name of Jesus to help in that situation? And we're proud of the people that do that, because that fits right in. Asking, not waiting to be begged by the elders or somebody else, but wanting to help. And so we've been able to find ways to reach out to churches that are ministering to those in need in Ukraine. And of course, there are churches and organizations of churches in the United States that meet and try to help in cases of disaster. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention, it makes the bookkeeping a little bit harder and more complex for the treasurer, but that's okay. We find a way to account for that money and get it in the proper place. Anyway, that struck me. And we got down further into chapter 8 last time, actually. It says, finish the work. If the willingness is there, the gift is acceptable according to what one has, not according to what he does not have. And then we got into verse 13, 14. Our desire is not that others might be relieved while you are hard pressed, but that there might be equality. At the present time, your plenty will supply what they need, so that in turn, their plenty will supply what you need. Then there will be equality. As it is written, he who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little did not have too little. That comes from where?
From when they were, when God provided the manna.
Yeah,
Yeah. When they were in the wilderness.
you couldn't amass it. You had to rely upon God to provide it each day. And you couldn't, get a big supply and keep it because it would rot and so on. You had to rely each day. And, if you tried that and didn't get it for one day, you'd just be out of luck for that time. So, and we closed in talking about the fact that there are movements abroad in the world that have been for some time on this issue of equality. How do we have equality? How do we achieve that? And some have tried to achieve that in the political sense. So we quoted Karl Marx before we left, who originally wrote, "From each according to his ability, to each according to his need." And that sounds, like a reasonable goal, but it didn't work in practice. So it was modified when they put it in practice in the socialist system. From each according to his ability, to each according to his work. And but those efforts to achieve the goal politically have failed, because just setting up a political structure they thought would change people, would create a new type of person, a new man, if you will, the Soviet man. But that failed. Why is that?
Well, I think it's in our human nature to be competitive.
Yeah.
And, when you see one person achieving a certain level, for some people, they can't, if that level is above there, they can't be content with that. They have to strive to do better and have more. And that I think is what defeats the kind of system that Marx had in mind. He's thinking that human nature was going to change to be within this system that he envisioned, but human nature did not.
Human nature didn't change. Yes.
This makes me think I'm Alan's cousin.
Okay.
Shows the great wisdom of God, because now Paul is writing to the church, and the church has come together, basically volunteered to follow the Lord, and they have an interest in each other. With the way the church is organized, with local church autonomy, and this, that's small enough that equality can be achieved. And the Lord and God in his wisdom did not set up the New Testament church to control or to rule over all of society. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. His kingdom is those who volunteer to come together." And so I think it's the great wisdom of God that within the church of like-minded people, we can achieve these things.
Yeah.
As opposed to a political system that's trying to impose socialism or anything else over every single swath of society of people who have not necessarily volunteered to come together. So again, the great wisdom of God to set up the church, and then the church reaches out. And as those volunteers, many in the day of Pentecost, there were needs, and the church met those needs, and it could do that. The great wisdom of the Lord. And how the church was set up, what it was to do, and importantly, what it was not intended to do.
And it's not a top-down imposed system. That's the way you change human nature, if you will, one by one, you touch the hearts of people. And that's what it takes. And that's what the church is, isn't it? It's a group of people that have, in a sense, changed human nature, changed their nature through their desire to be pleasing to God rather than serve the prince of this world who says, think of yourself and only of yourself. But what kind of equality is this, if you will? Do we need to put all of our, Patrick mentioned, and some of us have seen in our area, people come together, they pool all their resources and, then kind of divide it up. Is that what we need to do in order to achieve the equality that's pleasing to God? That's what he says here. Our desire is, but that there might be equality. What kind of equality is he talking about?
Equality Paul was talking about here. Yeah, like the way our elder said right now. Let's put it this way. You were sometimes explaining something about the political scene. The political scene, they didn't fail. But what's happened is they want to achieve more to themselves more than the population. That is the reason why it's not going well. But in Christianity, Paul is demanding us to stand faith. First, he said, he who has more does not have much, and he who has less does not have little, isn't it? That means everybody can make a contribution.
Right.
Everybody, no matter how small you have, no matter how big you have. Like I was saying that equality is it's not about your riches. No.
Yeah.
But I don't have what you have. No. But it's not a matter of to need to come to your level to be equality. No. But you have water, you have light, you have any personal need in life. Those needs, I have it too.
Yeah. I
have it too. I don't need to beg for water to drink. I don't need to beg for food to eat. I don't need to, beg for a place to sleep. No matter how small place I have to sleep, I have it. You are having some mansion. It doesn't matter that I should get the same mansion before me, I need to be equality. No. But whatever a personal need is, you have it, I have it. As a brothers, that means equality.
Okay. Okay. And it's willingness. If we see you in need, or if you see me in need, we share what we can. And God, the more we have, the more God expects of us. If we have just a little, as Jesus said of the woman who contributed a little, she's given more because she gave everything she had. And in a sense, that's what God expects us to dedicate all that we have to his service. Anyway, yes.
What do people need, and what sense of quality? That made me think of the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 6:31, where people were worried, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? And Jesus went on to say, your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added to you. So, in what sense was there to be equality? Well, I think at least the Lord's people should take care of each other, so they shouldn't have to worry about whether they'll have much to eat or not.
Yes. Yes.
Or what they shall wear, at least some basic necessities. And then we know examples in the New Testament elsewhere. Some people got a lot more than that, or they might have become a leader, they might have become wealthy. And they were then expected to share from what they have, but I think that's, people should have enough to eat and should have enough to drink, enough to wear these basic necessities, and sometimes more will come. But people should not have to do with less than that.
Yeah.
People should not have to worry about those things. The
Yeah.
Lord's people in Virginia should not worry about these things. Nor should they spend their time trying to get a whole, no, should they spend all of their efforts worrying about how to get a whole lot more than that. They should be grasping about a whole lot more than that. That might come, but
There's always that desire. That's the prince of this world urges us to constantly be trying to get more. I'm always struck by a verse that we cited a while back, that we go work for what purpose? Does Paul tell the Ephesians?
For the glory of God.
And to give to others. He says, don't steal, but work that you'll have to give to others. And I asked that question, but how many of us go to work in the morning and say, I'm going to work so that I can make some money to give away? Mostly we have some desires of our own, things that we'd like to better in our lives. But Paul says there, think of others. If we make more, if we get a raise, I can give more to the church. If we get stock options or whatever, that'll give us an opportunity. So anyway, any more on that? Okay. He goes on now with some continuation of the things that happened in his life. As we've said, a lot of this is Paul. He's talking about some events. He gets off on a tangent. Sometimes it lasts a long time. Anyway, so verse 16, I thank God who put into the heart of Titus the same concern I have for you. For Titus not only welcomed our appeal, but he is coming to you with much enthusiasm and on his own initiative. And we are sending along with him the brother who is praised by all the churches for his service to the gospel. He doesn't say who that is, does he? The brother who's praised by all the churches. Wouldn't you like to have somebody describe you that way? So-and-so is visiting, and he's praised of all the churches, or she is praised of all the churches for her generosity and goodness and service. That would be quite a thing. Some people think this was Luke because he's, a frequent companion of Paul, but we really don't know. What is more, he was chosen by the churches to accompany us as we carry the offering, which we administer in order to honor the Lord himself and to show our eagerness to help. I've always wondered a little bit about this Paul. He's carrying a fair amount of money. And I don't know if he's got gold bars or coins with a picture of Caesar on them, or exactly. He doesn't have paper money, I'm pretty sure, but he's carrying a lot of money. And it wasn't any Brinks truck to carry it with.
He got arrested a lot.
Yeah, he gets in trouble.
The Roman Legion of the time wasn't above
Yeah,
padding a little search and seizure.
but he's got some companions, which shows that he's being careful in administering the Lord's money, if you will, if you hear that term. Whatever's contributed to the church, that's the Lord's money. Have to be really careful what we do with that. But it's all the Lord's. It may be in a bank account with your name on it. It may be in your drawer at home or in your wallet this morning, but it's all the Lord's, isn't it? We want to avoid any criticism of the way we administer this liberal gift. And so we have in our elders and deacons meetings, right, to figure out how we're going to spend the money. And we don't want to get criticized, but Sometimes we have to make decisions with courage. For we are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of men. So that's the way it is then, that's the way it is now. He has people from different congregations, different nationalities even, that are with him in this to carry. I don't know if they divided it up or made him give an accounting, but whatever they're doing, they're careful. In addition, we are sending with them our brother who has often proved to us in many ways that he is zealous. Another unnamed brother. And again, wouldn't you like to be described in that way? I don't know why he doesn't give the names. Maybe he assumes that they'll know immediately who he's talking about. Anyway, and now even more so because of his great confidence in you. As for Titus, he is my partner and fellow worker among you. As for our brothers, they are representatives of the churches and an honor to Christ. So he's got several folks travel in a group, I guess is safer. Therefore, show these men the proof of your love and the reason for our pride in you, so that the churches can see it. And Paul knows how to provide encouragement in his writing. But he also, as we'll see as we go along, he knows how to get on them when he needs to do that too. And use some pretty strong language to correct them when they're going astray. But at the same time, assuring them of love. And that, again, I've used that example. That's kind of the way we seek to work with our children, isn't it? A lot of assurance of love, but sometimes some strong thoughts and some strong language to exhort them. So Paul, in a sense, looks upon the churches as his offspring, as his children, might as well say it. And in effect, those are his offspring. He's touched their lives and is concerned about them. He experiences rebellion. They'll say, Paul, what do you know? We've got some other folks over here that we want to follow. And he has to deal with that. Parents have to deal with that too. A lot of us, a lot of you have experienced that. So that anyway, there's wisdom associated in that way. Anyway, he goes on here. Kind of. There is no need anymore. There's no need for me to write to you about this service to the saints, for I know your eagerness to help, and I have been boasting about it to the Macedonians. That's the northern part of Greece, and not what we know as Macedonia today. But anyway, telling them that since last year, you in Achaia, that's where Corinth is, province, we're ready to give, and your enthusiasm has stirred most of them to action. So they kind of almost as if there's competition, that they want to outdo each other. They see other churches, and other churches see them, and they say, I want to be part of that. And that's good, isn't it? I want to be a part of that. And that's what we want to foster in the congregation and in other congregations. What do you think?
Depends on what your reason is for your why, because I mean, if you want to, if you're doing it because you want to be better and be able to brag about it, I think that's really not a very good motivation.
Okay,
But if you're inspired by the fact that, well, these people we can give as much, and you're thinking about how this is going to benefit the recipients. And that you're not looking for any kind of credit or whatever, then I get, knowing that one group gave and inspired you to give, that's okay. It's just, I think it's depends on what, you're thinking of.
yeah, is it a competitive spirit? I'm gonna outgive the other congregation in Philippi or Thessalonica. Yeah, those were churches in Macedonia. But is this amazing? Are you amazed by this desire to give money to the church? They've never met the people from there that Paul is from that area, but I mean, in a sense, it's amazing. It shows a transformation in outlook.
I think they're trying to be like Jesus. I mean, he gave himself
Yeah.
for us, for people he didn't know. And so they're being like Jesus because they're saying, these are like-minded people. They also love Jesus, and so we're gonna help them and make sure that they have what they need.
Yeah. It's really a good example of what of the effect of the gospel on attitudes of these are people that aren't rich, but they want to reach out to the church in Jerusalem that they've probably never been to. And do we feel close to churches all around the world, in Togo, in Ghana, and other places that we've got folks in the congregation from different places around the world. We support works in Honduras, in Germany, in the United States, of course. And you feel a certain closeness to those efforts.
I think many people will get excited about being part of a larger cause.
Okay, yeah.
We can sit as an individual and think, well, what can I do as an individual? I'm just a small individual, but the churches now, we've been talking about fellowship a little bit back in South Carolina. And we talked about our fellowship and supporting the gospel in different places. And I might think that that's beyond me, but as a member of the church, we can get together. And it helps us take our mind off of what's going locally. Of course, we got to pay attention to that. But it also reminds us there's a larger call. There's a worldwide cause of Christ. And there's something tangible that we can do in support of the cause. And in this case, the tangible thing was to give and get acquainted with the men who are going to carry the gift. And then we're connected with a larger cause, larger than just ourselves as an individual, and even larger than what we might think is going on in our local congregation. It's a cause. People often like to get behind a cause.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm sending the brothers in order that our boasting about you in this matter should not prove hollow, but that you may be ready as I said you would be. For if any Macedonians come with me and find you unprepared, we, not to say anything about you, would be ashamed of it, having been so confident. So I thought it necessary to urge the brothers to visit you in advance and finish the arrangements for the generous gift you have promised. Then it will be ready as a generous gift, not as one grudgingly given. He talks about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, give as your purpose, and that there be no emergency collection when I come. So then remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. What comes to mind? You know what, and I can't think of this guy's name. There's a TV preacher that's always talking about sowing the seed. And I just ran across that a couple of times a few years ago. And of course, his message of how to sow the seed, send him, and that God, you know, he has testimony as a lady sent him a check. Next day, she got a promotion at work, you know, that type of thing.
There's a bunch, like, the only name that pops to my mind is Creflo Dollar. He's not the only one, and there's at least one more.
Yeah.
There's lots of.
Is that how you sow the seed? You sow it by putting it to good use, that's just sending it to someone else that it says they have a need, I guess. But there's a lot of people that, like you say, that are searching for a cause, and they'll kind of give to anything. And we say, well, those people are gullible. And a lot of people would say those in the church are gullible because, you know, somebody's taking advantage. But we try to be honest and above board in the way that we make our contributions and what we use our money for. If anybody wants to receive our monthly financial statement, let me know. And I can include you on the distribution. Let's let you know how much is contributed and exactly where it goes. But anyway, where else do we read about that? I thought we'd just kind of stay on that topic for a minute or two. I'm looking in Proverbs here.
Can I do something in this?
Did you find a place?
No, there's something I found here I want to, in the book of, it says, Psalm 50.
Psalm, okay,
50.
okay.
Verse 14. Psalm 50, verse 14. You see, the way Israelites are doing what God commanded them to do, sacrifices, burning offering, this kind of thing. In later time, they were doing those things out of order. I don't know, because they were ordered to composure. Exactly, to do what they were doing, but not from the love that they have. Not from the love that they have. Then you see, God is telling them that you are doing all this thing, which is not, I mean, call for me, or I'm not happy with. But what you will do for me to be happy with is obedience, to be perfect submission to what you are doing, or the one I'm doing it to. That is the love that Jesus Christ wants us to have. So if we have a love of Jesus Christ, that we know that everything that we are doing according to what Jesus said. And if we do it that way, no matter how it is, it will not be in vain in our life. Then if you have that kind of love, everything that you do, or if you see even somebody in need, then immediately you feel it. You feel the way to help.
Yeah.
You feel it. That means you have the spirit.
Yeah.
We have people who don't have the spirit of giving.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We have preachers who don't have the spirit of giving, but they preach giving. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Many. They don't have the spirit of giving, but they preach giving. Yes. But Jesus wants us to be so much submission for the world to see the change between we and the world. You see, we and the world. How do we do that out of, because if maybe you are in need right now. And so Brother Alan is in need, we need to do this, we need to do this. And then I see people giving, and then I also get up and then give something. Maybe I'm not giving it from the sake of this. I see people doing it. I also want to do what? To do that. But that's not what Jesus wants. Jesus wants me to feel it immediately. I heard that Brother Alan is having a problem. I should feel it immediately as a brother or a sister, and see how we can move that brother into the toe. You see, so those submission, if we have this as a Christianity life, you can see that the world will have a different change on us.
I mentioned before, I read, a number of years ago, I read a book, I think it was called The Small Woman. Maybe you've heard of it. It's about a lady who went was going to be a missionary to China. This was in the 1930s. And she got there and was trying to be an influence for good, and was unselfish and was giving to those in need. But what struck me is there was an earthquake in this village, and there was a lot of the houses fell down, and there were people who were injured, and the average person just walked right by. People were, essentially hurt and needed help, and most people just ignored it. And that concept of wanting to help others is something that has to be taught and shown. We take in our society, when there's somebody hurt, there's an ambulance. You call an ambulance and they take them to the hospital and they have an emergency room and they take care of them, and we take that for granted. But it's not that way everywhere. Maybe some of you who've been in different parts of the world can testify to that. And we say, that's just what we take advantage of in society. But that spark of wanting to help other people ultimately comes from God, doesn't it? Through Jesus, we would say. And our society would not say this is a Christian value that we're helping others, but it really is. It really is. And if you want to take Christ out of society, you're saying, every person for himself or herself. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in. But I have a few passages here. One is from Proverbs chapter 11, 24 and 25. So Paul is aware of all these passages from the Old Testament. One man gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous man will prosper. He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. Another from Proverbs over in chapter 22, verses 8 and 9. He who sows wickedness reaps trouble, and the rod of his fury will be destroyed. A generous man will himself be blessed, for he shares his food with the poor. So much the same thought in the Old Testament. Let's see. Jesus taught the same. I can read it. Luke 6. This is Jesus in Luke chapter 6. I couldn't read my writing, but here, Luke 6:38. Give and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. you can't outgive God. You think you're making a sacrifice for Jesus, but he'll just pour it on you. So anyway, Paul is using these same thoughts that from the Old and the New Testament. Each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. As it is written, he has scattered abroad his gifts to the poor. His righteousness endures forever. And that's from a psalm, gifts to the poor. We've talked about that, God's special concern for the poor. And that's how we,
In the Old Testament, under the law, people were given a prescribed amount that they were supposed to give, and give a tithe.
yeah,
But in the New Testament, and Paul doesn't
no,
say, you need to give this amount, give as your, what you've decided in your heart. So, it's up to each person to decide what's right for them to give, and I get, the hope is that you're gonna be giving, as it says about the people there in Corinth, that they were giving sacrificially. It said they gave
even
a
more.
lot, and and even more than they were able, so they were sacrificing their own comfort to be able to give more to help other people.
Yeah, even under the law, there was the tithe, the prescribed gift, but God expected more. God expected sacrifices when something happened that you wanted to give thanks, or that you felt that you'd done wrong and you wanted to give a sin offering. He expected you to leave enough in your fields so that people could come along and glean. He expected, if you saw your brother in need, your fellow Israelite in need, that you do something about it. You return his animal. There's all kinds of things that indicate, he didn't expect you to say, well, I gave my tithe and that's it. I'm not going to do any more. But in our time, it's that's why he doesn't give a percentage. I was at a men's retreat one time, and I've said before, we got into a discussion about giving, and one brother said, well, the tithe of the Old Testament, might be a good guide. And then another guy speaks up, but I don't know if that's before or after taxes. Sometimes,
What's your opinion on that? You're a tax consultant.
it's all God's. I mean, so
What's
I'm not sure that fellow was a cheerful giver.
If you were tithing, you were sacrificing. 10% is a sacrifice.
For some
They got the
people,
ball rolling, yeah.
for some people, and for others, 1% is a big. For others,
Yeah,
50%.
but Paul's teaching generosity on all occasions, I think.
Yeah.
We go through life, we're to be a generous people as we go.
Right.
Whether it's giving to church or helping your neighbor.
Yeah.
It's an attitude more or less, principles Jesus had.
Well, we'll hold it there and we come right back in the middle of the 9th chapter next time. And thank you for your thoughts and your wisdom.
Thank you too.
Thank you for the lesson.